Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Mayor Rich Hill from the Village of Round Lake Beach, and welcome to our January 2020 Fireside Chat. Tonight, my guest is Lake County Board Commissioner Dick Barr from District 3. Welcome, Dick.
Thank you very much.
A little bio here for Dick. He represents the areas of Lindenhurst, parts of Lake Villa, Round Lake Beach, and Round Lake Heights. Dick resides in Round Lake Beach, one of our fine residents, with his wife Holly and their 4 children, ages 7 to 22. He owns his own real estate real estate brokerage in the village, where he serves the communities of Round Lake area, Lake Villa, Lindenhurst, Antioch, Grays Lake, Fox Lake, and Gurnee. Dick has served as a commissioner for the Round Lake Beach Planning and Zoning Commission, as well as on the board of directors for the Round Lake Beach Police Foundation, the board of directors for the Round Lake Beach Cultural and Civic Center Foundation, and the junior board of directors for the Save a Star Drug Awareness Foundation. In 2014, Dick was a member of the team that went to Springfield to present the work the Village of Round Lake Beach has done with the Civic Center to advance community ideals and promote coming together as a community. As a result of the work and presentation, the Village was awarded the 2014 Governor's Hometown Award, and we thank you for that. Welcome, Dick.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Well, we'll start out with a few questions back and forth here, discussing a few topics. At the end, we're going to try and save a little time for some questions. So if you have any questions, try to either jot them down or note them in memory. First of all, we have the screen back behind you here kind of showing the boundaries a little bit of your district. But can you explain a little bit better about your boundaries and what areas you do cover?
Sure, absolutely. So as you probably know, the county board is broken into 21 separate districts. Each district has approximately 33,000 residents. And District 3 comprises of all of Lindenhurst, about half of Lake Villa, the northern part of Round Lake Beach, and the northern part of Round Lake Heights. So geographically, we go as far north as Grass Lake Road, as west to Fairfield Road, south just north of Rollins, and then east Route 45.
Okay, pretty big area. What inspired you to run for public office at the county board?
I'm going to get some brown noise points here, but watching you as an elected official, Rich, has a lot to do with what inspired me to run. I've always had a lot of respect for you, and I don't know if everyone knows that Rich is a neighbor of mine, lives a couple houses down, and to see what you've done with the village and the good work that you've been able to do and the fiscal conservatism that you've exhibited had a lot to do with what made me want to run for office.
Oh, that makes me feel very good, thank you. But it wasn't just me. We have a great team here. The trustees work very hard. The staff is incredible, and they make things happen. Again, we usually take the credit for it, but they do all the work, and we appreciate that. I never wanted to be a politician, never wanted to be in politics, but back in '93, they had a new mayor come in, a new board, and things started changing, and the old mayor had talked to me about coming in, and I was like, nah, I don't want to be a politician. I was at the Chamber of Commerce and in the Parks Board of Commissioners. Park District is fun. You deal with entertainment, recreation, everybody loves you. It's great, never an argument. But eventually I found out, checked some things out with the village and saw there were some major issues that had to be corrected. So I did run for office as a trustee in '95. Again, nothing inspired me to do it. It just kind of fell in my lap, and for some reason I never left.
You've really done a great job, Rich. We moved here in 2005. You were the mayor then. I think
Yes.
you were already been the mayor a few years before we got here. As I've watched you, especially as Facebook became more prevalent and starting to see
Yes.
a lot more community interaction and seeing residents make complaints about certain things, and then doing my research to find out that a lot of these things that the residents complain about are outside of the purview of what the village does. And we'd hear a lot of times people say, well, with my taxes the way they are, I shouldn't have a pothole in front of my house. And I understand that.
Yes.
But while I did research into those types of concerns, what I found out is the village represents only about 3 to 4% of the property tax bill. On the county only represents about 4 to 5% of the tax bill. 75% of the tax bill is reserved for the schools, and then you've got another 20 some odd percent to the fire district, the library district. So as a real estate broker, one of the things that affect affordability and equity in our homes, a lot of my clients either can't buy in Lake County because property taxes are high, or the people who do own in Lake County, especially seniors, They've lived here a long time, but they have very little equity in their homes because our prices haven't been going up. So beyond the brown nosing, I have a true desire to want to get into a position where we can start to address that at a meaningful level. And that's going to require working a lot more handily with our municipalities, with other governing bodies, and then mostly address the state to how they interact with the schools, because they're not funding them the way our neighbors do.
Right. And that's a great reason to get involved. You have a good heart in it, your heart's in it for a good reason, and you want to help improve things. That's awesome.
Thank you.
One of the purposes of the Fireside Chats is to educate the public on how leaders at all levels of government work together in delivering services to individuals that they mutually represent. In your role as commissioner, how do you work cooperatively with the units of local government, whether it be municipalities or school districts or fire districts or park districts, in your role?
Yeah, and I love that question, because that's something I really wanted to springboard into, is to help create a pathway with more direct contact between the county and the different governing entities. One of the things that we do, and in fact, this is something that you join us with, is the northwest side corner of Lake County is all of the municipalities and townships, and the mayors and some county board members. We get together once a month, and we have a lunch in different areas, and we talk about what our issues are, what our mutual issues are, what our conflicting issues are. We talk about issues that are coming down the pipeline that we can work together with, or and beyond that is we have a very social aspect of it. Those lunches are very fun. It's one of the highlights of my month when we get together. We talk about families too. But what I'm most proud of, from an official standpoint, is right after I came in, I was working with the Planning and Zoning Department to bring some shared services with the village of Lake Villa in how they do their inspections, their planning reviews, and giving the village of Lake Villa access to our software, which saves a tremendous amount of money for the village.
Oh, yes.
By taking over their inspections, we've reduced about $50,000 of payroll for them. We've given them access at a very reduced cost to come into our Tyler Energov software program. And we've also made it a more efficient process for them, where the residents can actually go online and file for their permits without having to go all the way down to Libertyville. I'm also happy to say that we're in discussions with you here in Round Lake Beach about doing something similar. So Lake Villa is the test case to hopefully everything goes smooth, and we'd like to roll that out not just here, but in other places in the county.
And that's great. I know we've done that with some other software purchases, worked with some other communities, because as a conglomerate together, we can get a much better price on the same software. And especially the ones, that particular software that the county purchased, it's very powerful, and it has a lot of options and bells and whistles. And most of us could never afford that ourselves. So being able to tag onto the county, that's great. We've been doing something similar in the Round Lake area, myself and the other mayors meeting together, working on shared services, whether it be shared equipment. You probably know right now we have CENTCOM for our dispatch all together. We're all working together on Jawa for our Fresh Lake Michigan water, Swalco for our garbage collection. So there's several things that work together now, but the more we can expand that, it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, and I'm just going to tail on that too, is that goes both ways. So for instance, where Lake County inspections, we're already here in the northwest corner of the county,
Yeah.
and it makes sense to get more villages on that. And there's places in the county that we don't have a presence, and those are one-off. So when there's a review, it would dispatch one person to go to the far ends of the county. So what we ask for are municipalities in those districts to pick up for us while we pick up for the portions of the county where it makes the most sense. So staff does a phenomenal job. They are the smartest people in the room by far. Thank God for what they do and what they know. And they really make this something that I think is going to work perfect at one point.
Great. And the more we keep on building on that, again, it's a win-win. You've had the pleasure of serving as a village plan commissioner here in Round Lake Beach, and now as a county commissioner. How do the roles differ? Are there any similarities between them?
So the roles differ, whereas the Planning and Zoning Commission is more of a role of, Planning and Zoning Commission is more of a role of, Planning and Zoning Commission is more of a role of, Planning and Zoning Commission is more of a role of, Planning and Zoning Commission is more of a role of, Planning and Zoning Commission is more of a role of, Planning and Zoning Commission is more of a role of, Planning and Zoning Commission is more of a role of, Planning and Zoning Commission is more of a role of, Planning and Zoning Commission is more of a role of, Planning and Zoning Commission is more of a role of, Planning and Zoning Commission is more of a role of, Planning and Zoning Commission is more of a role of, Planning and Zoning Commission is more of a role of, Planning and Zoning Commission is more of a role of, Planning and Zoning Commission is more of a role of, Planning and Zoning Commission is more of a role of, Planning and Zoning Commission is more of a role of, Planning and Zoning Commission is more of a role of, Planning and Zoning Commission is more of a role of, Planning and Zoning Commission is more of a role of, Planning and Zoning Commission of review based on my own opinions of what I think was a great way to develop the village moving forward. My role as a county board member is much different. It's more of a representative role where I'm now representing a diverse group of people as opposed to just using my own thoughts into how we plan the future, as well as the constituent services side of what I do, which did not exist on the Planning and Zoning Board. I didn't have to worry about phone calls at 10 o'clock at night on the Planning and Zoning Commission. And on this one, in this role, when someone needs help or if someone's experiencing flooding, these are ways that the county board member interacts with the community to help them get help and help them move to the right sources that can fix their situation.
So in the one case in planning and zoning, you're interpreting the laws that the village has already passed and how to apply them to the different zoning or properties that want to come in. And as county board member, you're legislative more or less, where you make the laws, make the rules, and assist the residents.
See, you're much better and quicker at saying it than I am.
I've never been in the other position. I've been on the Board of Commissioners, legislative, and then the trustee and the mayor. So I haven't had that experience in the other role, but maybe someday, who knows?
Hope you do.
The state has a history of budgetary financial issues. Surprise, surprise. How far do you think the new budget goes in helping address the state's financial woes?
So that's tough. Illinois is a significant hole we're in. There's no secret there. We've got anywhere between $130 and $250 billion pension shortfall, which is causing a lot of the woes with our other taxing bodies. And part of the reason why our taxes are as high as they are is because the states don't fund the schools properly, or at least as much as they should, leaving all of that onus and burden on the property taxpayer. But what we see is, as new budgets come out, the new budgets don't address the gaps and the holes. Anytime a new source of revenue is identified, it appears that the state adds that in additional spending. So instead of trying to bridge the gap, they are, in fact, if you look at the 2014 when they passed the gaming bill to allow gaming in Illinois, as soon as the bill was passed, they had already borrowed and spent all of the money based on the predictions of what the income was going to be. And I fear that much of what they're doing now, with them looking for this graduated income tax and the new revenue from the marijuana sales and the new gas tax, they've already sold bonds based on what they're anticipating to come, which I fear greatly will cause even more financial trouble in the future.
Yeah, I know when they had the temporary income tax hike back in, what was that, 2013 or 2012, somewhere around there. You're right, they did pay down some of the bills, but they also increased spending in new programs, and we can't continue to do that. It just doesn't make any sense. We're dealing with something with that in 2020 in the county as well. So one of the big efforts that I made in the county was to try to make it so we did not increase the property tax, county portion of the property tax for the residents, and we were successful in doing that. We froze the levy at the 2019 year. Unfortunately, though, there's, I believe, $30 or $40 million in new spending that we've done while freezing those rates. So if we're going to address meaningful property tax reform in the future, not only do we have to freeze the levies, but we also have to strongly address how we handle spending. Mm-hmm. Yeah, when we hit the recession, Round Lake Beach, we were able to freeze our levy for 3 years in a row during this most severe part of the recession to help give the residents a little bit of a break. Due to the mandates the state put on us, though, we couldn't continue to freeze it because wages go up year after year, insurance goes up, all the bills go up this year. We all know in our family lives.
Yeah, and it's interesting, and if you don't mind, if we kind of just spitball a little bit on here, is the problem that the state's causing from its bad spending policies and its large taxation policies or governments like yourself and like county. We find ourselves in a position where we're forced to continually lower our budgets, continually lowering our spending. I'm not sure a lot of people understand. If someone has a $8,000 or $9,000 property tax bill, the amount that you get is about $200. So, but you get the most phone calls yelling about it to complain about the tax bills, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
Right. So even if you were to cut your budget in half, you're only saving the taxpayer $100. So this issue is far more holistic than anyone, I believe, understands. And part of what I think what we should be doing and what we do is educating the public on where those dollars are spent and how they can meaningfully address the boards that affect them the greatest.
Good point. And maybe this will spur some people to get out there and attend some meetings. Property taxes are a big issue in the county and the state of Illinois. Individuals, businesses often cite high property taxes as the reason they move out of the county and out of the state. What are your collective positions on property taxes? We kind of already went through some of that, but if you had any other comments?
Yeah, no, not really. I think we addressed it pretty well. We just have to focus on the best way so the public knows where to go and how we do it. But what everyone has to understand is that at this continual increase in property taxes, we are losing seniors at an unprecedented rate. Illinois lost over 100,000 people, net loss, over the past 10 years. Lake County in 2010 had a 750,000 population. In 2020, it's anticipated to be 703,000. Lake County's lost almost 50,000 people. They're not leaving, well, they are leaving because of the property taxes, because we have a neighbor 8 miles to the north that has significantly less property taxes, and as a result, their property values are higher. The difference is, when their mortgage is paid off, they have a smaller bill. Here, when your mortgage is paid off, you still have a full mortgage, it feels like.
Yes, that's very disappointing. Many of the residents don't know that the county board members also serve as the Forest Preserve commissioners too. Can you explain the dual role and how the two boards interact?
Yeah, sure. We are completely separate boards, and I'll be just completely transparent here. When I first decided to run for county board, before I did a lot of research on what the role was, I did not know there was a separation between the Forest Preserve and the county board. So we are two completely independent boards that operate with different leadership, different staff, different structures. There's been question over the past of, can there exist any conflict? And this is one question that I had, because there are times where the Forest Preserve contracts with the county. And I had asked the Forest Preserve attorney, well, here I am voting on two sides of a contract. Is that a conflict of interest? And his answer was, well, by statute, no. So while there might be a theoretical conflict, by statute, because the statute says you must be, there is no legal conflict. But it does raise some concerns for me, and there's been a couple of votes where I voted present because I just did not feel comfortable voting on two sides of the same issue.
Understandable. I've never understood why there was a separation to begin with, other than the fact that there's funding that comes in for Forest Preserve, and they want to make sure that funding doesn't get scooped up in other areas of the county. Is there any other reasons that you're aware of?
No, I'm not. But I do know that if Lake County were to hit an 800,000 population, then those two boards would be split.
Oh.
I do believe there is a benefit in splitting those boards for a couple of reasons. I believe the Forest Preserve serves a very unique higher cause where it addresses so much. One, open lands, beautification, preserving our lands to, and in fact bringing them back to their original state, holding floodwaters, amazing amount of floodwaters being held by the Forest Preserve, which makes our flooding problem better than it would be had we not had those. If those were just pure highways or impervious ground, that water would flow so fast we'd all be underwater at some of the rain events we're getting. So there's a different level of understanding I think is required on the Forest Preserve than there is on the county board, which is mostly about, the county board is more about legislation and budgeting and dollars and cents and focusing our tax dollars. So I would be very supportive of an effort that would split those two boards, because I think the skill set required for both is significantly different.
Yeah, I would imagine so. When you're interested in either financing and so forth with the county versus, like I said, the open space and recreation that's associated with the forest preserve is more like a partnership board would be rather than a village board. So,
Yeah.
oh. Well, we'll see what happens in the future.
Well, we're not hitting 800,000 soon, I can tell you that. The 2020 census, there won't be any surprises.
Over the course of the last few years, the County of Lake has been studying the consolidation of E911 systems. This type of consolidation appears to be consistent with the state's efforts to encourage local governments to cooperate in identifying services that can either be eliminated or consolidated. Do you have any kind of opinion on the 911 consolidation? Is it good? Is it bad? Should it be done some other way? Should it not be done at all?
No surprises in my opinion. I think consolidation is good. I think consolidation is one of the things we have to focus on. Illinois has got 7,000 units of government, the more than double of our closest competitor, and I think that's Pennsylvania or maybe Ohio. What we have to do is, this has to be a very thought out, methodical process. There will be some loss of local knowledge in full consolidation. Mm-hmm. For instance, Round Lake Beach did a consolidation of your 911 comm center, and you brought in, and you've done a very good job of it for a long time. And one of the nice things about having folks sitting in that comm center is a lot of them are from this direct community. Right. So when people call and they say, I'm close to Rollins and 83, or I'm at Fairfield and Montefiore, there's a good chance that they know about this. So I believe there's a level of locality that makes that beneficial. However, I do see the need for advancing our systems, using technology to be better about the 911 services, how they identify and target which properties are actually calling from them. And I think there are efficiencies that can be had. Mm-hmm. But there will be some friction with folks who want to keep their 911 centers more local.
Yes, yes. That happened in Wakanda before they consolidated to another location. They had I know the residents came out in support of all the dispatchers. They're local people, they know us. Then when they did more of a study, they found out that everything is so electronic now, any of us could be sitting anywhere in the world and to put that information in the computer, and we have it in front of us. It's an unfortunate fact of life that sometimes our skill sets are being replaced by computers.
Yeah, and that's where I think education will be important.
Absolutely, yes. We've been very active with the county's process here. Both CENTCOM is a member of that organization, and so is Round Lake Beach directly also, to keep our interests straight in front of it. And one of our big issues that we have with 911 consolidation is we also have our jail at the CENTCOM facility. And right now, if they have a dispatch center open up, we've got no place to keep prisoners. And if we have to locate them to Waukegan each time to the jail there, that's a long trip back and forth for our officers, and sometimes only 3 or 4 hours they're in the jail, but you can't just sit in your living room. You got to put them someplace. You've been a long-time business owner in the Round Lake area, and as you know, the Round Lake business community was hit hard by the recession in 2008. Large businesses suspended expansion or closed some stores. Small business owners seem to be hit the hardest. It seems that the larger companies often get the tax breaks. They're the ones that have all the attorneys, and they can dig through all this stuff and have the time to sit down and approach it. And the revenue sharing agreements also. Often we hear Illinois businesses suspending expansion plans in the county, choosing instead to accept incentives from the state of Wisconsin, as you just mentioned, to move a portion of the businesses to a community such as Kenosha or Racine County. As a member of the county board, what items or issues are being discussed to encourage, assist, retain small businesses in Illinois?
Yeah, economic development, as you're aware, Rich, Lake County Partners is an organization. It's a private-public partnership where the county works in concert with many member villages, municipalities, as well as private organizations to provide them a stream of economic development, knowledge, meetings, information of ways to attract businesses and try to retain businesses. But specifically, I'd like to go back to the beginning of your question where you talked about how do we retain small business, because the small businesses truly are the lifeblood of the community. As you drive through Lake County, you'll see that most communities can be truly identified by the businesses that they're made up of. You look at even just to our east in Gurney, it's got a very distinct flavor of the types of businesses that attracts. Downtown Libertyville attracts a very specific certain business. Even Fox Lake has a different style in Antioch, very kind of small community downtown area. So to be able to, as big box stores are starting to close all around us, developing a planning and zoning model that allows for small businesses to put in those downtown feels, I think is a very important part of how we can increase the value to our businesses by creating magnets of commerce in more centralized locations.
Yeah, business does help other businesses by being there. They bring the customers to your shop, they'll see the other shops, and so forth. So yeah, that's why you always see the business districts all together rather than so far apart. It's great.
Absolutely.
It's just too bad that the state of Illinois waited so long to do anything about it, and they keep on, as I said, offering incentives to this guy or that guy, the big business, and everyone else is kind of left still paying those high taxes, and it just can't survive like that.
So we don't have any specific programs. However, in the past, what Lake County has done is we have waived impact fees, and we have done abatements for business models that can show that they will help not only just increase employment in the area, but also increase traffic flow to an area that could encourage more business development. We don't do it often, though. It doesn't happen. In fact, I think the last time Lake County did it was 2015, where they did a 10-year 50% abatement on a local business.
I heard that Route 53 would have brought a lot of business up to this part of town, but I guess it's a dead issue now.
It is, unfortunately.
In your role with the county, you serve on several committees. You have the Health and Community Services, Diversity and Inclusion, Forest Preserve Committee, Legislative Committee. See also Lake County Partners, as mentioned, Board of Governors, and the Lake County Watershed Management Board. Can you explain the role each of these committees plays in development and drafting of legislation?
Yeah, sure. In fact, what a lot of people don't know is when they come to those board meetings, the monthly board meetings where we have the entire board there and we vote up and down, what they don't realize is that most of the work has already been done. We've usually, by that time that we vote on it, we've spent literally months and many, many hours and lots of staff time and lots of research. So by the time we're ready to vote on it, chances are most of us already have our mind made up. Now, there might be some commentary made by the public that could change our mind, could sway us, but it's a uphill battle to change our mind at that time because we don't have time to research based on what those comments are. Why those committees are so important for the public to be aware of is the best time to effectuate a change in your favor or out of your favor is in a committee. Because when you bring something up to us in a committee, then we have time to research it and do all the work associated with it. So a colleague of mine on the board, his name is Michael Danforth, I love the way he puts it, a little bit distasteful, but he says the committees are where the sausage is made, right? And that's true, that's where all the work is done. So the committee process that we do is really where all of that work is done. So from a legislative side, people will complain, well, if you talk about the state, like last year, the state started talking early about a gas tax, and we started messaging on it and talking about it. And people would say, oh, that's just a pipe dream. No, oh, it's just in committee. No. The time to fight against anything that you don't want is when it is just in committee. Because once it catches legs and more than one person thinks it's a good idea, it's very, very hard to stop. So I don't know if you agree with me, but the best time to stop something is before it blooms.
Absolutely, I agree 100%. Just like the county, municipalities are all very involved downstate too. We have the Illinois Municipal League that lets us know when there's a bill put in that is not going to be good for the communities. Unfortunately, we have not had a lot of success in convincing our legislators that you're going to hurt our residents, and they would rather support their special interests than worry about the residents, and it's very disconcerting. I just want to go back real quick on Lake County Partners. You had mentioned them a little bit. When they first began what was it, in the early 90s, I think it was. I was president of the Chamber of Commerce for the Round Lake area, and I was honored to have a seat at the table when I first started out. Lenny Dam from Dam Snow to Vernon and Fox Lake was part of our chamber, and he's the one that made sure that we had a seat at the table, which was something we can never thank him enough for that, because it led us to jump in with all the businesses, with the county, was a big partner in that. ComEd and Icor Gas and AT&T and all those other big community members, Abbott, Baxter. So it's a very good experience for me, and I think for the whole Round Lake area.
Yeah.
Oh, here's an interesting one. With discussions in the national media concerning the integrity of the election process and potential for outside interference with the voting process, do you see this as something that should be taken seriously? And if so, is the county considering any type of legislation to prevent vote tampering or to make it more secure?
So it's an interesting question because the county board itself does not directly handle elections. The elections are held by the county clerk's office. Voter integrity is probably one of the biggest threats to American democracy,
yes.
right? And because we use digital machines, we do have to worry about not just the outside tampering, but the actual inside tampering within computers. I do know that the clerk is working on some voter integrity programs. In fact, I think just today or yesterday there was a story that the Secretary of State
yes.
identified, and I don't know what the number is.
547, I think.
Well, who's counting? 547 people who were registered to vote via the driver's license program who shouldn't have been. But I think that's positive news because it means that they're actually looking for it. They found it and they admitted it. That's transparency, and we can't argue that that's a bad thing. So we need to identify these problems. We need to fix these gaps, be transparent to the public, and do it. But I am aware that the clerk is working on some programs for security, tamper resistance, and voter integrity itself. I don't have a lot of information on that, unfortunately, because it's not my department. But I am aware there's several groups out there. In fact, if the public is interested, do a Google search for Voter Integrity Project, and you'll probably find a half a dozen different organizations working on that common goal of voter integrity.
Well, years ago, I was very glad when the county clerk at that time, Willard Helander, went out for the new voting machines. She did not go the straight electronic. She wanted to make sure we had the paper ballots still that were counted electronically, but you still had that backup. You could go back and count them if you had to find out what the vote really was. Because then they've had some issues where the machines, like I said, could be tampered with or pure electronic. We all know the hacking that happens nowadays and the ransomware that gets put out there, and it's only a matter of time until something serious happens.
Now, what's interesting is, so we're still a high percentage of still paper ballots. So we still have those backup records. And last year, in 2019, there was a recount. And I got to participate in that recount, which was very interesting because we got to see them counting those paper ballots, which was really neat. However, now that we have such a 3-week period of early voting is done exclusively on a computer. There is no paper ballot. So when you go to your local precinct and you vote, you get a paper ballot, a little black magic marker, you fill it in. But when you go to a centralized early voting location, it's a touchscreen computer, so we don't have those paper ballots in those instances. They do print out a receipt. However, the question does remain, if the voter presses this button, is that the button that did press?
Right.
And are they checking their receipts after they voted? I don't know the answer to that question. Oh. And I think that's too a messaging and education thing that all voters should be aware of when they do cast their votes. So
the receipt that prints out, that actually has a tabulation of how they voted?
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. I've never early voted. I always, I'm one of those guys that goes on election day, and that just seems like a ritual I wanted to continue to do.
Me too. I'm a traditionalist. We make it. It's almost like in our family. It's almost like Christmas morning. We get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. All of us go. We vote. The kids stand with us in the booths, and we want them to understand how important that democratic process is. And it's something. It's not just a privilege. It's an obligation, and it's a duty.
Absolutely. And we
And
do
it's
need
not a
more.
privilege, not just a privilege, it's not a privilege. It's a
No.
right.
Yep, right, responsibility. We need more people to get out there and educate themselves about the candidates and then go out and vote. It's very important. What do you believe are some of the larger issues facing the 3rd District? And even, I guess more so even just Round Lake Beach and Round Lake area?
Yeah, so Round Lake, no area is immune from flooding issues in Lake County. I mean, what we've had is over the past several years, we've had an increase in intensity and frequency of our flooding events. It's really hurting the chain of lakes. If you think about while the effect on the homeowners is significant, if you think about how much tourism dollars is represented right here on the chain of lakes, hundreds of millions of dollars in annual tourism is significantly affected when we have these flooding issues because the chain is closed. Right. And when the chain is no wake or slow wake, the folks from the city aren't coming up. And when they don't come up, the hotel rooms, the bars, the restaurants, the gas stations, the bakeries, every place that would receive additional revenue stays away. With all of the development north of the border, especially as Uline built a massive facility, Amazon built a massive facility, Foxconn is in planning to build a massive facility. We need to pay very special attention to how we address flooding in the future because whatever it is now will get worse if it's not fixed or at least accounted for. Mm-hmm. Property tax is the other big one, and then lack of business development.
I know years ago the county worked on the Watershed Development Ordinance, the WDO. They put that in place, and Round Lake Beach is large enough that we actually do our own checking on that and follow up on it. A lot of smaller communities at the county do it. But that was a good piece of legislation to get that started so that they could build the development. They had to build detention of some sort. Before that, really, you threw it up there and okay, it's going downstream. That's it.
Right.
Like I said, with the chain of lakes, I know several years in a row, Memorial Day weekend, they were closed. And that's a huge weekend.
Yeah.
It's just really sad to see.
Absolutely. And what's important is as you're very well aware of, retention is good until it's full, right?
Yeah.
And with the sheer volume of water we're getting, it's not just retention anymore, it's slowing the water down. Mm-hmm. Making sure it's going through a slow process as it goes down, because then it can slow down, move through the ground, and funnel out where it's not an issue. Because when we send it all straight downstream, it's disastrous downstream. I do want to mention another major problem we have in Lake County, and again, this is not unique. Our opioid issue is still a problem.
Oh, yes.
Mike Neerheim, the state's attorney, has done an amazing job with some of the programs that he's working with, including he's got the Lake County Opioid Initiative, which I'm a member of, where there are so many people sitting at that table. We have state reps, we have congressmen, we have senators, we have doctors, we have outreach programs, cops, sheriffs, you name it. There must be 40 or 50 of us in that room when we meet and we break down. And the nice thing about the Opioid Initiative is we sit down, we say, what's a problem? Perfect. We take every stakeholder who holds a piece of what that is and they sit down in committee and they nail it down right there. And often leads to some great ideas coming out of that. I'm very proud of what Lake County has by way of the Way Out program. And if you don't mind, I'd just like to talk about this as a benefit to any resident who is in need of this. The Way Out program is a program where if you want to get help, but you're in the throes of it right now, you might have drugs on your possession right now, you can call the police, and before you call any police, not everyone participates. Right. So
Round Lake Beach does. We are members of it. So
fantastic. But the list is on my website too for all the organizations that participate. You can call the police and say, "I want help," and they will come. They will pick you up, and they will deliver you to get help, and you will not be prosecuted for the law that you broke possessing the drugs that you hold.
And people do need that help. They need a way out, and that's the name of the program. There's so many things that if you just had that little bit of help to pull you up a little bit, you can get through it. But that's one of the hardest things for anyone to go through. Opioid addiction, as you well know, it's almost instant, first time you use it, and it's for the rest of your life then.
Yeah, unfortunately, I lost my sister to an opioid overdose back in 2008, and it's really made it a personal issue for me. I'm also proud that one of my colleagues on the board, Steve Carlson, worked for a long time to put in the 211 program in Lake County.
Oh, yes.
And that's something I'd really like all the residents to be aware of. 211 is just like 911, except it's different services. Don't call for an emergency. But if you're experiencing domestic abuse, or if you have a drug problem and you want help, you might be becoming homeless soon and you need help and you need to where to go. You can pick up that phone, call 211. It's manned by the United Way, thank you. And they also work with all of our police departments to help our residents get help when they need it for just about anything you can imagine, including not paying your gas bill. They won't pay it for you, but they'll connect you to services that will get you in line for help to be able to remedy your situation.
Yeah, such a major step compared to years ago. We had what they called the Red Book that they put together from all these different service agencies, and you had to try to thumb through there and try to help a resident. It was very difficult.
Yeah.
And this is going to be so wonderful for all the people that really needed extra help. And sometimes the pressure that they're under is sometimes push them to do things they really shouldn't do, and this might give them better opportunities.
Yeah.
If you listen to both the national, local media and various cable news channels, it leads people to believe that Republicans and Democrats do not agree on anything. Is that really the case? If so, or if not, what items that have bipartisan support as they pertain to the county?
Yeah, so luckily the answer is no, it's not the case. Yes, I don't think there's been a more divisive time in the history of America between two different battling parties. But the good news is, on county board, for instance, the first 30 or 40 items are in what's called a consent agenda, where there's no debate, there's no nothing. We're just agreeing. The first 30 or 40 items we automatically agree with, there's no fights. The next 20 or 30 items on our agenda, some of them will have significant debate back and forth. But the reality is we're probably on a monthly basis only really bickering one or two items. The rest of them we're in complete agreement with. We work together, we talk with each other, we work well in committee together. These issues that are highlighted on the media, they really don't talk about what local politics is. Sometimes you wonder, well, why do we really have Republican versus Democrat in local politics? Because it's not. We're all there addressing the same issues. All of our residents have very similar issues. There are some ideological differences with spending or on what to spend on, what to prioritize, but at the end of the day, we really work it out, and that division's so unnecessary at the local level.
Yeah, I'm glad the local municipalities don't have that issue right now. It's too bad the county board does.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. There's so many things that we all get along with, you all pass, but the news media seems to focus on one or two little things that we don't agree on, and they make it sound like that's all there is. And it's unfortunate that they put that view of the government out there.
Yeah, there's a story that happened, this was a few months ago. We were talking about changing the ethics ordinance on the county board to address harassment and certain speech issues. The Republicans on the board were, myself included, we were concerned with some of the language in the ethics ordinance because we found some of the language to be very restrictive and prohibitive on speech. The ordinance itself and its effect and its intended purpose was necessary when it had the first provisions for making sure sexual harassment was mentioned in an actual black and white document, which was very important.
Yes.
However, other aspects of it did some limiting to speech to board members potentially. So we expressed that interest, and I had actually voted against the ethics ordinance based on what I considered to be a First Amendment issue. And then the newspapers the next day, reported it says, Republicans vote against sexual harassment ordinance. I think, well, that wasn't exactly the case. None of us were in favor of sexual harassment, I promise you. And that's where committee really comes important, because we need to be able to knock those out, those common sense issues, to make it, because if we just make small changes, then we can get full agreement on the board.
Exactly.
And a lot of times things are pushed through for political reasons that don't need to be, but they're pushed through to make points. And that's where, if you were to ask me what the most challenging thing about my job is, it's looking at something where a common sense eye says, well, this is simple, and then having to find out that there's a political reason on the other side that common sense will not prevail.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I've been very lucky in Round Lake Beach since I've been mayor. I've had a good board. We discussed a lot of things, as you said, during your committees. A lot of discussion goes on. You might start here and here, but by the time you're done, you arrive here, and you pass something that's good for the residents. And sometimes when politics gets involved because you're at a next level, it just hinders the whole process. Sure. It's unfortunate. Public service is under constant scrutiny and pressure to act. What motivates you to continue with public service, and how do you handle the stress associated with your service?
It's easy. I absolutely love my role. I absolutely love what I do. I consider 60% of my job on county board is constituent services. While our budget is huge, and that's a very important aspect of the job, the most rewarding and most important job is the constituent services aspect. So being able to help someone on a one-to-one basis, if I'm dealing with someone who's been trying to call this department or the health department or the zoning department to deal with a flooding issue, and they're not getting anywhere, for them to pick up the phone, call me or shoot me an email, and get them to the right spot, to get them an immediate answer, is so rewarding in itself. So that aspect of it will keep me always enjoying what I do, regardless of the stresses. The stresses are relatively easy to deal with. I mean, we wouldn't be doing what we did if we didn't enjoy that to an extent.
How true that is, and you're right, the personal fulfillment that you feel by either you do a project, you help a resident with an issue they're having, you know, in our case, we pave a street, we put a new water main in, so they don't have to worry about water main breaks all the time. That's very rewarding, and a lot of time you spend, and the not so good times that do come up occasionally, that makes it all worthwhile. One of the questions that I ask all the elected officials that come to the Fireside Chats is, why would a young person run for office when they see so much discourse in today's political environment?
They should run to office to change it. It doesn't have to be that way. One day, someone's going to get up there and unite us. I don't know who that is, but one day someone, and right now they might not even be born yet, but I'm seeing a lot of very positive energy and excitement coming out of some of our high schools and our colleges, where they really have this burning desire to forge or to make a difference, to make things better, to work with each other. And I'm seeing, as divisive as everything is, especially on a federal level, I'm seeing a lot of common ground in what we do locally, where we agree on so much more than we disagree on, and someone's going to be able to pick that up and unify us and make this not an issue of the future.
That would be awesome if that happens, and I'm sure it will. Like you said, every once in a great while somebody comes along that just has that knack to reach and connect with everybody and across all lines.
Yeah.
For young people that are interested in government, are there any educational or internship programs through either your office or through the county?
Yeah, absolutely. So I make use of an intern once in a while. I did last fall. Right now I'm working with a whole group of students from College of Lake County, where not for me as a county board member, but for a organization where we put on events and do some education. The county has specific, very tailored programs for interns. It is budget-based because they are paid internships. We have it through our county administrator's office. We have it through stormwater management, the forest preserve. We have several departments where they all have internship opportunities, and I'm not aware of all of them.
Oh, that's great. Whenever there's an interest, it's nice to at least get a taste to make sure you really like it, and you don't just like it on the facial part of it that
Absolutely.
you dig in.
Yeah, and beyond the internships too, we've got a very aggressive program through our workforce development, which I'm very proud of because that comes through one of my committees, the Health and Community Services Committee, where we actually in the summer, we employ up to 600 students throughout the county on work where we subsidize some, we take some grant money, and we have the private businesses chip in some money. So we put these kids to work making in actual businesses, and sometimes they get some not just internship but apprenticeship exposure. One of the things that concerns me is right now we give this to 600 kids throughout the county, is the cost of that is significant. And as our minimum wage is increasing, it's expected to double by 2025, my fear is that we're going to have to cut that program in half because we have not yet identified additional funding sources to be able to subsidize the increase in the minimum wage. And we'll be required to pay that minimum wage. It'd be nice if we can lobby the state to say, hey, listen, this is a great program. A 11th grader doesn't need to make $15 an hour for a summer job. How about carving out an exemption for us so we can still provide this great opportunity for these young folks to get that job experience? That's very important, and especially the underserved communities, to give them that opportunity, and I'd hate to see that number cut.
Yeah, they learn how to come to work, to dress appropriately, show up on time. There's so many different things. They learn those skills, the basic skills that maybe they never learned growing up. I've learned a lot of local small businesses that are having the same problem. They're looking, they had high school kids working there for years. When it gets to $15 an hour, will they maintain that? The state used to always have a separation for anyone under age 18, which they have in the new law. I think you can pay $13 instead of $15. But they can't work more than, I think it's only $650 a year. So in most businesses, unless it's a summer-only job, they use that. So it's going to take a lot of those jobs away from the kids. And it's really unfortunate.
Yeah.
One thing I didn't have in my notes here, but kind of jumped in my head, with the census coming up, there's going to be a redistricting in the county. I know the fair maps have been a big talk in the whole state. It's never made it on the ballot yet for a constitutional amendment to the state of Illinois. But I think the county has talked about this in the past. Do you have any knowledge as far as how the county plans on doing redistricting? Yeah,
so we haven't seen the plans yet. I do know that the last board that preceded me, one of the last major changes they made was introduction of the fair maps. So I'm really hoping that it's something they're serious about. And for anyone who doesn't know, what fair maps is a nonpartisan, impartial breaking up of the districts. Right now, as we know, in the state of Illinois, we have very partisan maps, and that's not just the state of Illinois, it's all over the country, right? And it doesn't matter if it's Republican or Democrat. Whoever's in control dictates what those maps look like, which is inherently problematic. And what you get is, you get someone who lives like all the way down in Effingham on this silly salamander going all the way up, and they'll have all the way up here at the top of the map is Chicago, and all the way down here is Southern Illinois. So this poor farmer in Southern Illinois is represented by a guy who lives on 22nd and Cicero. So it doesn't really leave for proper representation. So I'm really hoping that the process put in for Lake County for fair maps by the last board is taken seriously and proceeded with, I think for everybody's benefit.
Oh, that would be great. You read a lot that they're saying the residents should choose their elected officials, not the other way around, which is the way it has been done in the past for so many years. So, well, that's all the questions I have on my sheet here. We do have, I think, a few more minutes left. If anyone has a question in the audience, we have a microphone back here by Dan, and the way everyone else can hear what your question is, just kind of raise your hand, and Dan will bring the microphone around.
Hello, I really curious to listen, but then you mentioned about the Way Out program, and one question came to my mind was usage. You have a lot of, I don't want to say repeat offenders, that's such a bad term, I think, for me, but, people fall off the wagon. So is it unlimited help for that? It's like, well, do they have a certain amount of times they can use the program?
I don't know personally if there's a max. I do know anyone who needs help can call them, tell them they need help. Now let's make sure this is clear. If you're in high-speed pursuit and they're putting the cuffs on, you can't say, I want a way out. The purpose is to help people who need it. we're losing about 80 to 100 people a year to opioid deaths in Lake County. That's too much. So what they've really done is they've made this strong effort to make it feel like you can be safe to do it. I'll have to get back to you on whether, Chief, do you know if there's a limit?
No, there is no limit. I mean, if you take into account.
Would you mind use the microphone there so it goes on? Thank you.
Chief Rivera, Round Lake Beach Police Department. There is no limit. We are participating in the Way Out program. So, you know, it's such a difficult addiction that it sometimes takes many starts to get through. And unfortunately, it's such a dangerous addiction that, you know, there's sometimes people don't have a lot of starts that they can start. I mean, it can be deadly so quickly. So there really is no limit. And it's not just opioid. There's other addictions drug addictions that are allowed as well for that, but they're kind of triaged depending on what the addiction is.
That was a great question, thank you.
Other questions? Well, Dick, I appreciate you coming out tonight and spending it with us and educating us a little bit on what the county does and how the programs they have and how they help us and all of our residents. I do always give to each of my guests one of our pins from the Round Lake Beach. So, hope that's sugar packet, wrong pocket. There we go. Nice shiny pin for you.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rich. I appreciate it.
Make sure you all come back next month as we call it Mano a Mano. Thank you.
Thank you.